Hollywood in the 80s was pure magic and just a little wild. Join Loop and Larry and their very special guest, direct from LA, acclaimed Hollywood writer, producer, director, Anita Rosenberg. Hear stories from actors, directors, and the talented people who make the magic as we learn lessons from Hollywood and beyond so you can learn how to be the star of your life.
In a world filled with intergalactic space battles, metahuman destruction on a global scale, and psychopathic serial hauntings, there's only one team who can make sense of it all. When your world is overrun with rampant pop culture, call Loop and Larry, Guardians of Geek.
Yes.
Yeah. 77th explosion, 77.
Hey, I'm Loop.
And I'm Larry.
And this is Guardians of Geek. Thanks for joining us again. Our last show was our Oscar show, I believe.
It was.
The last time we've done something. And the reason it's been a while is because we've been prepping for this an interview today, which is once in a while we like to throw an interview in there just to kind of mix it up a little bit. And I think we got a really cool guest today. She's the author of this book, How to Be the Star of Your Life, Lessons from Hollywood and Beyond, Anita Rosenberg. And Larry, tell us a little bit about her because she's very cool.
Excellent. Well, so first of all, full disclosure, she's my cousin, and I'm really proud to say that because she is pretty amazing. She's got an incredible story to tell. So let me tell you a little bit about her. She's an international keynote speaker, award-winning author, and television guest expert. She's earned a master's degree in filmmaking from New York University Graduate Film and Television School, and she's one of the few female film directors from the late 80s. And she wrote and produced a film called Modern Girls that starred Virginia Madsen, and she directed Assault of the Killer Bimbos, which we'll talk a lot about because this movie is so much fun. So she learned how to persevere and succeed in a male-dominated industry, and she's taking all of the lessons that she's learned in Hollywood and created this book. She's written this book, and she's got people from all across the Hollywood sphere. So directors, actors, producers, writers, people Cloris Leachman, Virginia Madsen's in here. Fab Five Freddy is in the book. It's a fantastic book. So let's just get right into it. Welcome, Anita. So good to have you here. After 5 months of talking about doing this podcast, we are finally doing it. And so the buildup and the hype for this thing is beyond anything we've done so far. So we're super excited that you're joining us today.
Only because we're cousins. That's why there's
yeah,
all the relatives, all the Mishpuka is going to be watching. So there's
excellent. Excellent. So let's just jump right in and talk about how you got to Hollywood. Anita goes to Hollywood. How did it happen?
I grew up in Cincinnati. We're a part of your family that, you grew up somewhere else, but I was in Cincinnati, always made art, went to art school, went to the San Francisco Art Institute, and I started making films. I was there as a sculptor. I was a welder. Way before Jennifer Beals did welding in Flashdance, I was welding first. Let that be known.
You're the original.
I was the original. And I started making films, and it was really exciting. I worked with George Kuchar. Do you know the Kuchar brothers? George and Mike Kuchar?
I've heard the name. I don't know much.
George and Mike Kuchar were the West Coast versions of John Waters. They were the pioneers of independent filmmaking. And at that time, we're talking 1976 to 79. Nobody really knew what it was. And I just loved making films. So when I graduated, I thought, well, every artist goes to New York for their education. But I just went to art school, so maybe I should go to film school. So I applied to NYU and I got in. And I was really surprised, but I sent my short films in, and it was very exciting. I was in the same class as Spike Lee. So Spike was in my class. I had some other amazing people that are in my new book is Ernest Dickerson, who shot Spike's films, and Marianne Brandon, who is the big action editor. She edits all the J.J. Abrams films, Star Wars, Star Trek, Mission Impossible. So it was a fabulous class. And my thesis film was called Bachelorette Pad. It had Barbie dolls that came to life. So
That's
let me
wicked.
know, and I was first in the Barbie doll
That's right.
world. I had hired actually an Academy Award winning animator, Jimmy Picker, and he animated my Barbie dolls, and they kind of was very cartoonish, very romance comics sets come to life. And starred Patty Astor, who unfortunately has just passed away a few days ago. So there's a lot going on social media with Patty, but Patty was my partner in creative crime, and we came up with this totally campy, silly film together. So I take my film, and as every good filmmaker, we go to Los Angeles, go to Hollywood, and I've got my film under my arm. So I come out to Hollywood actually, and I sell Bachelorette Pad to Universal Studios for an ABC sitcom, which shocked the crap out of me because it was kooky and it was weird, and there weren't female filmmakers and no female directors and no campy projects. We didn't get it on the air, but I got that far, and that was pretty exciting. And so while I was in LA, of course, I wrote a lot of screenplays, and then Patty Astor moves to Los Angeles, and we write scripts together. So we started doing some really fun and interesting and kitsch and campy projects. And I got my first movie was called Modern Girls. So it was about girls going to nightclubs in LA looking for guys. I did it for Atlantic Releasing. They did not let me direct. So this is a company that had made Valley Girl and Teen Wolf and Night of the Comet, and I had a feeling they would make my film, and they did. However, my original project was called Party Girls, and I showed with a giant board game, a three-dimensional board game, and it was about girls. It was based on the movie Mystery Date.
Yes.
Which was a girl game when I was growing up.
From like the 50s or 60s, wasn't it?
Yeah, you roll
Yes.
the dice, you get your mystery date.
Yes.
So I went in to pitch that, but this was before Jumanji or anybody was doing anything of that nature. And they said, well, we like your idea, but they actually saw an article in Playboy called Modern Girls about girls going to nightclubs, which there was a lawsuit, and Atlantic, I think, won. But at that time, I was actually going to nightclubs, and I worked in some of the late night nightclubs. This is how I made money, Power Tools, and some of the very well-known clubs at the time. So I thought, okay, so we'll redo this of girls going to nightclubs looking for guys. And I had Virginia Madsen, Daphne Zuniga, and Cindy Gibb were in the film. Amazing. And it was really fun. It really is it's a cult classic film. They show it all the time here in Los Angeles. Last screening was last year, and I got the 3 girls to come.
That's so cool.
I know, it was really neat. And I actually sat through the whole thing, and it does kind of hold up in many ways. It was not the movie I really wanted to make, but you know what? What you learn when you're in Los Angeles is you make the movie that they let you make. You know, you can stop a movie from getting made because it may not be perfectly what you have in mind, but then that doesn't buy you anything because then you don't get to make a movie, right? Well, I realized that I had been writing scripts, but in order to get a chance to direct something, I directed a short film. So my old writing partner and creative crime, Patty Astor, and I wrote Get Tuxed. So as don't just get dressed, get tuxed. And someone I knew from Cincinnati growing up was working in a tuxedo shop in the Valley. So we sort of made it about, this character whose family is in the tuxedo business, but the brother who runs the business, Jerry Cufflink, can't take on the big night. So Eddie, his younger brother, takes over, and he becomes Mr. Tuxedo out of control. And there's magic that happens. So he puts on the magic tuxedo, he transforms. And it was fun and campy and cool. And it was Ice-T's first film.
Amazing.
That's pretty cool.
He played Fab Five Fishy, the ladies' man. We had these loan sharks, and Fab Five Freddie from New York was supposed to play the part. It's really funny and campy little thing, but he couldn't come, so we put Ice-T into it. And
awesome. Did you know Ice-T prior to this, or did he just?
Patty did. Patty knew the rappers, and she got Ice-T and Henry G and Whipper Whip to come be these guys. It was very funny.
Amazing.
And actually another person, and then his wife at the time, Darlene, who's in the famous album cover wearing not a whole machine gun. She actually was emailing me yesterday. It's been a long time since I've seen her. So she was in it. So we kind of got all our various friends. And so I had directed this film, and sometimes you just have to do something to show that you can do it. So I had some connections with Charlie Band, who I'm sure you've covered some of his films
Yes.
from Empire Pictures. And Charlie had a title, and he had seen the little movie, so he knew that I could direct something. So he had a title called Assault of the Killer Bimbos. And they had made a movie which was one of his sort of it was a blood and guts kind of project. And I think what he I'm going to put words in his mouth, but I think they realized they could have a better movie because the title was really great. So they changed that to Hack 'em High, and then they freed up the title and they said, "Will you write it?" And at first, I was so insulted. I was like, "Oh my God, like I've already been called a bimbo." Um, all for film school and in Hollywood, and bimbo was a term used a lot, and it's kind of insulting.
Yeah.
But Patty and I went for the weekend and we rented all the Russ Meyer, Roger Corman, Girls on the Run, Girl Gang, and the one picture was Faster Pussycat Kill Kill.
Yep. Yep.
Classic. And so they were like on the run, framed for murder. So we thought, okay, if we could do a movie about go-go dancers on the run, framed for murder, and do it from a female point of view, female protagonist, and have fun with it, then I'll do it. So Patty and I did write the script. It wasn't exactly a Charlie Band script. So he brought in one of his writers that he really likes a lot, Ted Nicolau, and Ted rewrote it. And you know what? It's another situation where I'm giving his crew, I'm giving his people, and I had not done a feature film. I had done student films. So we went to the Mojave Desert and we're on location. And one of the things that I did that I thought was pretty smart is I knew at that time you need to cast up. You need to cast some people that are going to bring attention to the film. So Cincinnati, my hometown, comes into play a lot in my career. So Jamie Bosian was someone I knew who was acting, and he said, I can bring in my friends Griffin O'Neill and Nick Cassavetes, and we'll play the surfer guys. Yes. And I was super excited, like, whatever you guys want to do, come please be in my movie. And they had no dialogue. These are 3 characters, and you cannot hire these guys and not give them dialogue. You just couldn't. So there was dialogue, and we added to their characters and parts, and it was really fun. So we shot on location in the Mojave Desert, and then afterwards, it screened. So remember Joe Bob Briggs?
I was just going to bring him up. Yes, we watched the interview just recently. That was pretty amazing.
It was so VIP. So, he sends me down to be on the Joe Bob Briggs drive-in theater, and there's a limo picks me up, and he's wearing cowboy boots and a cowboy hat. And while I was there, he was also interviewing Wings Hauser and Gary Busey. They were also doing their own episodes. So that was the group that was there. It was quite fun. And my mother
let me just hold this up here. Let me just show you. So this is the movie.
That is the movie.
It is still available to purchase on DVD. It's fantastic. By the way, we both watched it. It's so much fun. It holds up because of its campiness, because of its 80s campiness. It is, let me just tell you, this is like the quintessential 80s movie at this point, because I mean, everything from the costuming to the music to the dialogue to the just all of it is so quintessentially 80s. And it's just, if you like that campy 80s sort of actiony car chasey kind of thing, this is the movie that you need to watch. So I just
a bimbo with a gun.
It's so fun.
That was actually one of I always put my boyfriends in the movies, and they always had these silly lines. And by the way, my sister was the costume designer for that.
Yes. Oh, that's
Susan.
Cool. Yeah, I saw that.
She's now Susan Wexler, but she was Susan. Well, I think she was Susan Rosenberg. Maybe she was Wexler at that time. Yeah. But she did a great job because the girls had to be sexy but not slutty.
Yes.
And there was a certain amount. We had to use the F word a few times. We had to do 3 naked booby shots. I was kind of really embarrassed, but I felt like I tried to integrate the scenes. My favorite scene in that is when the girls are bending over the hood of the car.
Yep.
That was sexy. That was sexier than like the makeover dressing scene or whatever that you had in that. So that was, it was a hoot, and I was so excited, and I was really thrilled to have directed a film. And from there, I wrote lots of other scripts with Nick Cassavetes. We did Cabana Boy. He's hot. He's sizzling. He's Cabana Boy. You can see a theme. I have these subtitles, and I pitched it to I think it was CBS. And they took the idea and they did a movie, a TV movie called Prince of Bel-Air with Mark Harmon and Kirstie Alley, based on a hot pool boy falling for the lady of the house. So the message is there's nothing new under the sun. Whoever gets it done first gets it done first. And
Right.
it was a bit disappointing. I mean, theirs was a TV movie of the week version of something really campy that I was going to do.
Yeah.
But
Wait, can I just interrupt? Can I just interrupt for real quick?
I'm just chatting away. So tell me.
Before we get too far away from Assault of the Killer Bimbos, I just want to read a little quote from your book about this, because Quentin Tarantino is a huge fan, and this little segment of your book really sort of got me because I thought this was awesome. Okay, I'm going to read it. Just a second. So decades after the drive-in extravaganza, I met award-winning director and film buff Quentin Tarantino. He confessed that he was a Bimbo super fan. Quentin worked at a sushi bar in a video store at the time of the movie's release, and used to organize all the cult films into one section, including Bimbos. He blew my mind, reciting the cast list, citing locations we used in the Mojave Desert, and he had even been at the Pickwick premiere. Quentin Tarantino, before he was Quentin Tarantino, was a fan of this movie. Like, this is the impact this movie had at the time. You know, I mean, the people,
thank you. No,
Yeah.
I was downstairs. So we have a famous sushi restaurant. He wasn't working in a sushi restaurant. I was at the sushi bar ordering something,
Okay.
and he was right next to me. And I must have said something, and I don't know. And then I must have mentioned the film, and then the whole conversation went from him to me, and it was really exciting. And we knew that he had worked in a video store, and that there were certain films that he was influenced by and really liked. And you know what, it's those moments when you're in Hollywood where someone whose work you really admire can look at your campy, kitschy little project and compliment you back. It was big. It was a big deal. And I've seen the movie 2 times already at the Beverly Hills Cinema, which is the cinema he owns.
Yes.
That's pretty cool.
I mean, then, you know, the highlights of what had happened was there weren't projects for female directors. There really wasn't. I was and also to do the things I wanted to do. There's a style and a campiness and a silliness to the things that I wanted to do. And I don't know, maybe it wasn't commercial enough. And, you know, after 14 years, I of the dangling carrot of next week, next month, let's do lunch. My dad would tease me, let's do lunch. But I like to say that not even a 4-hour lunch with George Clooney could keep me in the movie business.
So, okay, talk about
I did
this.
have a 4-hour lunch with George Clooney.
Okay, so you mentioned this in the book, this lunch with Clooney. So how did that happen, and what precipitated during that?
So I was, you know, after all the years of filmmaking, I found myself kind of hustling jobs. So my first boss, who has a chapter in the book, Norman Stevens, who's fabulous, he was then out at Warner Brothers. So he was a big TV executive, and it just made me feel good that I had an office to pop in. I could go over and we hashed ideas out, and you know, I'd look at some scripts for him. It made me feel like I was doing something. And I was in the commissary, and right next to me was George, and this was before he did ER. And I knew of him also because he's from right across the river in Cincinnati. My parents knew his parents a little bit. My dad would have lunch every month with his dad, with a group of men, business guys in Cincinnati. So, I mean, I knew him from Cincinnati, and I just started chatting to him. And of course, he's adorable, but I was talking to him more like, oh, we're Cincinnati people. And, you know, then we just took our little trays, and then we sat outside, and lunch was like 4 hours. It was awesome. But during that time, what was interesting is he was looking at projects. You know, they were trying to find things for him at Warner's. And because my boss, that was his whole job, was putting actors with projects and knowing what was going on in the television world, I remember saying, well, maybe you should, you know, come over to the office and meet with Norman and I, which he did. And I knew Norman tells us a version of his story is that George came over and said, you know, they want me to do this thing ER, so it's not my show, it's an ensemble, and I play this womanizing doctor, which maybe isn't that big of a reach at the moment. I wasn't sure, and Norman said, you know what, it's got such an amazing creators and producers that you can't go wrong and you should do it. And Norman says, I don't know if he listened to my advice, but I do know during that time, I mean, I would show up all the time just to watch him play basketball. I would just casually, I was playing. And then I joined the YMCA in Hollywood so I could just like work on the treadmill while he was playing basketball. Which was and we were friends at that time. And I remember he would call me and say, there's a reading for a new script, a project, will you come? And I would come and take my little notes, and then he'd ask me, what did you think? And so that was nice. It was, kind of a little bit of an encapsulated moment in time. And then he did pick ER and he did go off and do this, but I have not seen him in ages. I do remember many years later, I'm in New York with my family, and I think we're at Barney's and we're eating, and he's at the next table with a friend, and I'm yelling, George, and he comes over and goes, Anita, you cannot yell my name.
Yes.
And my mother's like, I remember when you were this big. Like, I remember when I was that little too. And he's a very down to earth and sweet guy. I have not seen him since he's been married and has children. But I think if I did run into him, I think he would still be the very down to earth and sweet person that he always was.
Amazing. So what other recollections do you have of just, experiences directing or just being in Hollywood in the 80s? I mean, because it was such a sort of weird time. I mean, it was you were starting to direct. There weren't a lot of women directors, so you were sort of a bit of a breakaway director in doing what you were doing. Like at one point in your book, you talk about a party that you threw that was sort of you attempted an outrageous sort of party that didn't necessarily turn into an outrageous party, but was
it was actually a pretty outrageous party. Yeah. Well, now, so O.J. Simpson just passed away, and Kato Kaelin was the big celebrity at that party.
Yes.
And it was only a few weeks after that situation happened. But, like in the 80s, everybody who was making films at that time, we all knew each other. Whether it's actresses or different actors or writers or filmmakers. And there was a lot of money flowing in Hollywood. I mean, I think, we were just the beginning of getting ready to rent videos. Like, I remember someone told me a story about some lady went to the video store and got the video thing anyway, and she goes home and puts it on her TV and comes back, goes, it didn't play. I put it on my TV and it didn't play. And people did not realize they had to buy a machine to put the tape in.
Yes.
It's such a new thing. Yeah. So like, especially with Bimbos, is if you were like, it was a Paramount, I think, got the distribution. So when a theater or when videos would order all the Eddie Murphy movies and the top A-list, then they got a certain amount of Z-list. I was in the Z-list. And so kind of that happened there. But, with Greta Gerwig's big success with Barbie, which by the way, I love. I mean, yes. I loved it on so many levels. It was just so my cup of tea. And I grew up with Barbie, and I also think my vision of what it was like to grow up and be a girl was Barbie. Barbie, she had one boyfriend option, but yes. She had a lot of career things. She had a cool car, and so I don't know. It's just to be a career person and do what you want to do. I mean, I didn't grow up with baby dolls. That's what I kind of grew up with her. So my thinking was that there were only like maybe 5 or 6 of us, female directors who were making movies at that time, like a Susan Seidelman and Martha Coolidge did Valley Girl. And, these are people I admired, and these are films that were very comedic at the time, with women protagonists kind of doing, which at the time, think about it, there was like Bachelor Party with Tom Hanks and Porky's, right? So those were the other options. So I like to say, like, we kicked down the door so that Greta Gerwig could break the glass ceiling. Yeah. And I'm putting myself in that category. And I really thought it was really amazing when Nick Cassavetes, who I kept trying to get a hold of him to have a chapter, and I couldn't locate him. He lives down the street, it ends up. But he says to me on the phone, I want to write your foreword. And I was like, to me, that was so meaningful, because it was somebody who knows me, who I'd worked with. And he came over, and one thing he did say, that it's in the foreword, but he said, he wished I had made more movies, because he would have liked to have seen where I would have gone with my filmmaking. Yeah. I mean, I only got to make 2 movies. I wasn't the best filmmaker, but if I had 20 years of making movies, I would have improved. Oh, yeah. I think I would have gotten better. I didn't really get shots to get any better at it. I could have maybe done the Barbie movie, but that's only after I had made a shitload of films and had much more experience and was a better filmmaker.
Right. Now, wait, I'm going to stop you there. I'm going to stop you there
Yeah.
real quick again. Just you referenced the VHS explosion, the VHS boom. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but something that I found recently that I think you did on your VHS release of Assault of the Killer Bimbos, after the movie played, did you have a merch trailer, like a trailer promoting the merchandise? I found a video.
Yeah, there was, Charlie Band was so brilliant with marketing and promotion.
Yes.
And the one person, I don't know if he did all of it, was Dale Olson. Dale at the time was like an aging Hollywood publicist, and he did the drive-in theater. I mean, who thinks to do a drive-in theater premiere? And we had a bimbo contest, and we had like the Barbarian Brothers and Angeline, and we had the people from like Bewitched, and it was just really fabulous. And he did we did a bimbo contest, which was at the Roosevelt, which we weren't really going to cast, but man, the line went up and around, and there's a video of that. I think it's on my YouTube channel. You can see it. And I think the big question was, people were like, who's the bimbo and who's casting for the bimbo? And they see me as the director. And I didn't try to be any more mature. I mean, I wore hot pants. I mean, I dressed how I would normally dress at that time period. I wasn't trying to be super serious and I felt like I knew who I was. I knew what I was all about, and I didn't have to be perceived any differently. Then this was going to be a lot of fun. And I do think there were some merch things in there that they had shot. Yeah.
Well, and the reason I bring that up is because, I mean, Loop and I have watched an infinite number of VHS tapes in our lives. And I don't think I don't think I've ever seen a movie that had, it was like a 3-minute long trailer at the end of the movie selling the merchandise. Like it gave you like an address to write to or a phone number. And it was like literally, I mean, the star of the movie was holding up posters, and you could buy bumper stickers, and you could get t-shirts, and you could get stickers, and like all of this merch. It made me feel like more a part of the movie, because it built the hype while you're so you've watched this fun movie, and then all of a sudden you've got the opportunity to own a cool piece of it. It was selling the soundtrack on vinyl. Like she was holding up the vinyl soundtrack, which was really cool. It was just a really neat way of continuing to enjoy a movie. And I don't think I've ever seen that before on a VHS tape. To have this sort of merch pitch, which was really cool.
Ballpark of, because we're eventually gonna talk about my new book.
Yes.
Which is, Lessons from Hollywood and Beyond. So when I got out of film school, Michael Uslan hired me to do something. And so Michael was like, so I think I said it's our dentist's wife's brother had something to do in the movie business, maybe. So Michael's biggest thing that he taught me is intellectual property.
So before you go on, Michael, for people who don't know, Michael Uslan essentially owns Batman.
Yes, I'll get.
Yeah.
I was going to.
Okay, you go. Go ahead.
Into the thing of he bought the rights to Batman. He did cartoons in DC Comics, and he bought the rights after the TV show, and he came to Hollywood, and it took 10 years, and no one wanted to make the dark version of Batman, and eventually they did. His name is on everything Batman.
Yes.
But what he had said to me at the time, because I think he had just gotten the rights to it, he said, where you make the money is the lunchbox and the t-shirt and all of the merchandising products that have your project branded. And I'll never forget that, because it is so true. I mean, it's intellectual property of owning the rights, but it was really important for him to retain the rights to everything that had a Batman on it, and that's probably where Charlie Band was going with the merchandising. Yeah, and anyone who's really smart in that field, that's where they're going to, after you've seen the movie once or you've bought it, what else can people spend their money on?
Yeah.
Well, that's where George Lucas made his billions. Was
Really?
when he made the movie, I think he sort of signed away his cut of the profits from the movie in order to retain all of the merchandising rights. And at the time in 1977, people had never heard of this before. They thought this was ridiculous. So of course they gave it to him because they thought, well, he's not going to make any money on that. We'll give him that. And of course, that's not the way it happened. So I thought that was just a brilliant addition to your VHS, the VHS of your movie, because it really, it showed what people could do, and people would be excited and purchase, and they would just keep being a part of the movie.
Well, and carrying on with that theme, what I want to mention to you. So when the idea of writing the book was sort of my, I hate to say love letter because that's such a cliche term, but it was kind of putting the period on reflecting on my life in the film business. Because when I left, I started a hand-painted furniture business. I grew $1 million business in my garage. And for 25 years, I've been a spiritual coach, an expert in Chinese astrology and feng shui. But the point is, everything I learned about how to run a business, a creative business, I learned from the movie Business. It's called The Business. That's why the book is like Lessons from Hollywood and Beyond. Because, yes, you want to be, yes, here we go.
There you go.
You want to be creative, but listen, your Amex and Visa, where do not care that you're this creative, sensitive soul. They want to get paid.
Yes.
So you better have your eye on the money in business. And I just find, my specialty in my cosmic coaching career is creative people and filmmakers and actors and people that are at the top of their game. And what they all have in common is they are thinking dollar signs and money and financial rewards, because that lets them be more creative and continue to do it. And I divided the book into into sections of filmmaking, because I believe that every business and even your life is, first you start with the writers. If you don't write something, you have nothing. Like, I don't care if it's a to-do list or grocery list. How many times have you gone to the grocery with no list and you're just buying miscellaneous things that are just like, my stomach is going to feel like crap later because this is not going to mix with that, and I'm going to eat it all at once.
Yep.
So writing, everyone writes, whether it's thank you notes or scripts or writing stories or journals. Then the next thing is producing. Producers put together projects. They raise the finance, they raise the funding. They're the business minded of a project. Next, we have directors. Directors are the visionaries. They have the vision to manifest and make it happen and to direct people. I probably direct too many people continually. My family's like, stop directing me. But once a director, always a director, and a big sister is always a director. So there you go for that. The next in the categories I have is the actors, because listen, you don't have to be on stage in a performance. You guys are acting right now. I'm acting right now. We're all kind of performing and acting. Sometimes we have to act to sell ourselves, to sell our products, to kind of network and connect with people. And then last, I found that everyone I knew was on the crew. Crew is they get the least attention and they're the most important. They're what's called the below the line in Hollywood, which doesn't get the kind of zhuzh that the above the line or the money.
Yeah.
But man, you cannot do a movie without the hundreds and hundreds of crew people, from cinematographers to lighting to costume to editing. They're so important. And I've been on the book tour. I was at Barnes & Noble, and the Barnes & Noble actually had a real filmmaker panel. So I had Ernest Dickerson, who shot all the Spike Lee films from She's Gotta Have It to Malcolm X. He directed Juice, and he discovered Tupac Shakur, which he talks about. And then I had Gary Goldman, and Gary is a director, but he's a first AD mainly. He does all my favorite Showtime HBO shows like Ray Donovan and House of Lies and Shameless. And then Joe Urbanchek, who went to film school with me as well. He was a year ahead of me. And, he doesn't get that much recognition either because he is a camera operator. Now, he has done his own cinematography, but he tells the story about Vilmos Zsigmond coming to him and asking him to be his camera operator. Now, do you guys know who Vilmos Zsigmond is? No. Okay. So we have a legacy in Hollywood of Polish and Eastern European cinematographers.
Right.
They're the important players. They have won all the Oscars, all the awards. So you look up Vilmos Zsigmond. He came over he's from Hungary. And for 25 years, Joe was his camera operator. He did Two Jakes with Jack Nicholson. I mean, the amount of, I think he did He either did The Deer Hunter or one or the other. I mean, his credits are phenomenal. I kind of wrote about it in the book, but so Joe had to make a decision. I mean, do I go really forge a career in cinematography, or do I, 25 years, he has worked with the biggest names in Hollywood, and he's responsible for them being in focus. He's responsible for capturing the moment, and he talks about it. But the point is, I'm on this panel, and I mean, I had the panel, and I was so happy and so shocked when it finally got to Joe talking, who you'd think would be, he's a little more introverted, and maybe his stories aren't as exciting, but they actually are. The other two were in such awe. Like Gary goes, "You carry that big heavy camera," and like no one would have anything on camera if it wasn't for the camera operator who's operating the camera.
So hold on. Let me interrupt you real quick. I just want to read another excerpt from your book from Joe.
Yeah.
That seems like a perfect point. Okay, so this is Joe talking. This is a lesson from Joe, and I thought this was really interesting because you don't hear a lot of interviews, with the crew. So this I found really interesting. So this is Joe's take on being a camera person. He says, "I think the most important thing to remember as a camera operator is that there's an enormous amount of pressure." He said, "You are forced to do things in one take. Movie stars don't want to hear, 'I need another take,' especially big-time actors like Jack Nicholson, Michelle Pfeiffer, Val Kilmer, Michael Douglas. They don't want to redo shots if they don't have to because of operator error. So it means I have to transform myself." Like, you don't think about those sorts of things, like how important his role is. And how he has to get it right the first time. Actors can do it over and over, directors can call for second takes and whatever, but the camera guy has to be right on. So it's things like that.
Well, Steve Fierberg has a chapter, and Steve shot all the Entourage TV show and the movie, and he does Emily in Paris. And he talks about, if you push the wrong button, like now everything's electronic, you push the wrong button and you've screwed everything up. I mean, there is so much pressure on, and he's the cinematographer on it. So on shooting and lining everything up. So I just wanted everyone to sort of also have a perspective on the phases, because you can apply. Listen, Mona May, who's a costume designer, talks about dressing the part. Well, every day you go out into the world, you dress the part. You dress the part you want to play. If you're a businessman, you're going to wear a business suit. If you're in Hollywood, you're going to be a Hollywood casual. If you're going to be Wall Street, that's one kind of thing. If you're an artist, you better be a little kooky, so we all have the way that we're dressing. Like I'm over there, like Luke's got his t-shirt on, so there you go. I don't even know what it says on there, but woohoo. So I felt like there were just some amazing life lessons, and the idea of how to be the star of your life is not necessarily acting. It has nothing to do with acting. It's like you can be a star parent, a star spouse, a star plumber, a star, anything. I can't believe how many times like I'll see someone getting ready to either speak on stage or do some event, and they're all nervous, and you have to stop and go. And even me, sometimes I'll go off to a feng shui consults with some big fucking movie star, and I'm like nervous, and I'm like, "Anita, you are the expert in your field. You know what you're doing." And then in the car, I go, "This is what I do for a living. I get to waft incense and walk around." And then I'm like, okay. So you have to remind yourself you are the star of your life, whatever it is that you do. And that was the whole point.
I think that's amazing, and that's what you get from this book. Sorry, Loop, I think I interrupted you.
Well, first I was going to introduce myself, Anita. My name's Matt Loop. How's it going? I feel like I'm at a family reunion, but I'm like the extra who just doesn't really know everybody. I'm kind of a new boyfriend. It's just sort of moved in. So it's but first off, I just want to say, number one, I love the book. It's actually very inspirational. It was actually like a lot of things, because I'm in radio. I do sketch comedy. There's a lot of parts in it that I absolutely loved. Number two, you got Larry to read a full book. So Lawrence read his first book, I think, in about 10 years. So I think that was like an accomplishment on its own, because it's not often that we talk about books and Lawrence has actually read a full book. So is it Ann Beats? Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the things she said, and I love this, is because I do radio and you have to come up with content constantly, because content's king, just like you're saying. It all starts with the writing and with sketch comedy as well. But I love this where it says, great ideas are like butterflies. You write them down, or one day they're just going to fly away. And it's true. You think of this, oh, I should remember this. And if you don't, it's gone. You've forgotten it. And there's little things, no matter what you do in life. I think there's a lot of quotes and a lot of stories that are brought that that apply to anybody, to whether you're working in an office, whether it doesn't matter what you do in life, you're a mechanic or whatever, you can find little pieces, little nuggets in these stories that you brought. But one of the questions I had was, what was it like going through this book? Because it must have brought back a lot of memories. You had to maybe dig a little deep from your own life to relive all this, your whole life. It's a pretty fascinating life.
Thank you. So this book took about 6 to 8 years. I remember at the beginning, I was sort of writing, it wasn't a memoir, but I was telling my Hollywood stories, and my father said, why don't you invite other people into the book? It'll be more interesting. And it was more interesting. Yeah. So, then I started reaching out, and every single person I asked to be interviewed said yes, which really meant a lot. And some people I hadn't seen in a while. Because if you're not working, Hollywood is, if you're not working on a project with someone, you may not see them for a while. And I wasn't in the business. So it was it was just so interesting to get together with my old bosses who I knew like 40 years ago, and then girlfriends who I had known, and various people at various phases. And I'll tell you, it became probably in my mind more interesting to me, because I was like, oh, it's like, this is your life. So I would go home and I didn't know how to interview people. I mean, I'm not an interview, I'm not a journalist. So I had like my notes, and they just it was more of a sitting in conversation and getting some fun stories. And when someone, like one of the stories is sidetrack, the story that Brad Cravoy writes about going into the jungle with Martin Landau.
Oh, right.
And the guys are like shooting, and it's like, you don't realize the impact that film has in the world. But the only reason they weren't shot to death is because they recognized them from their shitty black and white TV in Mission Impossible, right? Yeah. Which was kind of neat. So there were just some great nuggets of stories that popped up. But what happened was it took me a long time. I did not get an agent. And then finally, a writer friend of mine and mentor in New York, Sue Shapiro, said, well, why don't you send it to my publisher, one of my publishers? And she said, yes. And this is after waiting years for someone to like what I was doing. And she said, yes. So I turned it into this book that she liked. And then I showed it to an editor I work with, Rex Weiner. And Rex wrote the original stories from Ford Fairlane with Andrew Dice Clay, and he's in the book. And he said, Anita, you have three books. You have a memoir, a self-help book, and interview book. Yeah. Pick one. And because it's how to be the star. So I felt like I had to have exercises at the back of each chapter, spiritual exercises. And I had a lot more memoir-y things. And I went, yeah. So I reworked the book, and I decided, okay, well, I'll give myself a chapter at the end, and that'll be my memoir. Plus my introduction to each person was kind of little memoir-y stories, right? Yeah. And it was interesting because there were a few things I wrote, and then Rex would go, oh, you're not coming off with a good light. Don't tell that story. Or, and then there are times where you have to reach a little bit deeper, because nobody wants to hear like life is like la-di-da. Like, when I had to go back and work for Norman Stevens at Village Roadshow because my parents had an intervention with me in Las Vegas at a steakhouse saying you have to make money and get a job. And I was like, oh, no. And Norman said I need a new assistant, and I mean literally I remember it so well. I get out of the parking lot in Century City with my little brown bag, and I am crying, and the tears are dripping my brown bag line. And I just felt like such a loser. I felt I had taken such a huge step back in my career, and I know a lot of people will feel like that, like every once in a while, especially the young people. Yeah. So interestingly enough, the audience that has found this book, let me ask you, who do you think the audience for this book would be? Because who I set out to make it, finding is maybe not the audience it's finding its way to. What do you think?
I mean, quite honestly, I felt like this book could appeal to a huge audience. I mean, it would appeal to Hollywood aficionados, like people who, know these names and remember these people from back in the day. And it would also appeal to people who want to try to improve themselves and be inspired by stories from people who are professionals who have made it essentially. So I mean, I don't know. I think it's hard to qualify who's going to be the specific audience. Who are you trying to reach?
So, my references are older because
Yeah.
I'll tell somebody I've got Cloris Leachman, and young people are like, what? And I'm
Yeah.
like, she's won more Emmys than, I think she's tied with Julia Louis-Dreyfus.
Yeah.
So there's older references, but then I also have Ashley Tisdale, who's a client who's younger, so everybody younger understands it. So after the first, because I still have a few more events in my book tour, the first few people. So now, granted, these are the children, these are the 20-something and early 30-something children of friends and family members. And afterwards they go, Anita, I read it cover to cover. Can I take you to lunch? Of course, I take them to lunch, but I mean, that to me has been like, wow, that is so interesting because they want advice on careers. Now, these are all people who are, they're kids that are want to be filmmakers, they want to be directors, they want to be writers, they want to be in the entertainment business. So this is an industry they want to be in. And I've been really surprised by that.
But
My son's taking film in Toronto, like this is his first year. But I'm gonna recommend him the book to read because the stories are right up his alley. And it's funny because he's so young, but his influences are now becoming all the movies from the 70s and 80s. Those are the movies he's hyper focusing on, which I found really interesting. There's a retro feel now with younger people that they're going back to these older movies and these and the 70s and like who was the filmmakers back then and the innovators basically like yourself. And I think that's really cool. And I think that this book sort of represents a little bit of everybody. Like you were saying, like you've got Cloris Leachman down to Ashley Tisdale. You got like a whole array of people that
The Fab Five Freddy, who Yo TV Fabs. Yeah. So
well, and the thing is too, Loop and I have been in television. I mean, I've been in television for 30 years. Loop was in television for 20 years before he moved to radio. So we have a background in sort of the entertainment field essentially. And so for us, it was really neat to see, like, we could relate to a lot of these stories too. So I think we're the audience as well. I mean, people who, have experienced like this, but not necessarily in Hollywood. So it's interesting to see, a different professional's take on things that we've done. So I mean, your audience is so broad with this book. I mean, it's so appealing to a lot of people.
Thank you for saying that. And with the film, like talking about like with your son, the thing is when you're in film school and you're learning, they do not teach you how to do business. They don't, and that's why Ernest Dickerson's chapter is their life after film school.
Yeah.
And even Marianne says, okay, they didn't even have a ceremony. They send you off after film school and then you're out in the world. And then what do? I mean, I came here, I didn't know how to answer the phone. Like I remember making a bunch of cold calls. And then when people call me back, I didn't know what to do. Like you have to keep a list. You got to write a note of what did I call you about? And what are you calling me about? And then they don't teach you business stuff at all. They just teach you how to, and they don't even always teach how to make the movies. You have to sort of get out and do it. But I was just really hoping that there would be also an edge to, business, because Marianne Brandon, who works for J.J. Abrams, I love that story, how she's shooting, editing Alias. He's got, I think, what was the first movie? I think it was it the Star Trek? It was one of the movies, and he was interviewing another editor, and Marianne was really insulted. And then she just decided to go to his office and go, why'd you hire someone else? He goes, well, do you want the job? You didn't tell me you wanted the job. She goes, I do. It's like, if you don't speak up and you don't tell someone, how do they know that you want to do it? So I think that, yes, you could be incredibly talented in your craft, but you have to understand how to navigate business and people and networking and connections. It may not be your forte, but if you don't do it, you're going to miss out.
And I think that's the part that can appeal to anybody, because that's true in any career, in any field. I mean, that doesn't necessarily just relate to an editor or, everybody needs to speak on their own behalf, right? I mean, you need to know what your skill set is. You need to know how to sell yourself. And stories like this help to remind you that you need to be your own advocate.
Well, it's true. And you talking about all the areas, I think most of the people in this book are hyphenates. They did a little of everything, and there's nothing wrong with that. I have transitioned to a few different careers. You have people like E.G. Daly, who started as an actress. She is a singer. And now she's an award-winning voiceover actress. So, I love some of those journeys where you don't know where that path is going to take and what that. And Julie Brown, who talks about, well, I want to do these projects, but I had to write my own material. And then she talks about Earth Girls Are Easy. And she gets the deal that she's supposed to star in it. And then they go, you're not a big enough star. And she's like, well, I could have just kiboshed the whole thing, but that's not going to buy me anything. So she rewrites the gay best friend as like the hairdresser. So she gives herself a part. She goes, sometimes the co-star is the better part. And that conceptually, not everybody has to be the leading person. And Virginia Madsen, who talks about wanting a long career, a Lou Grant career. Actually, Lou Grant was the character.
Yeah.
But, like Betty
Asner.
White career. She because she was an ingenue in her, and she was in Modern Girls. And she was the most in-demand young little 18, 19, 20-year-old hot little ingenue. And she's an actress. She is a working actor, actually not. Yeah. So there's hopefully if you can grab something. Well, you know what I did? So I made these decks of cards. I think I'm going to put them on the website. These were just my giveaways for people in the movie business, but all the quotes from the book. Because, we're all like in soundbite world, right? We just want to take away. So here, I'm going to pull a card. I'm going to pull a card for each of you.
All right.
Okay.
Larry, your guidance is from Fab Five Freddy. What you do as a career is really your life.
It is. Absolutely. That's
your guidance for today.
I accept it. I accept that.
Okay, so let's see. I'm going to go. I feel like this is what you need to hear.
Yeah, okay.
Virginia Madsen from Sideways. True beauty really does come from within. This is our secret life.
Tell my wife that.
It might seem like a girl thing, but no, I mean, the idea is that it's, it's beauty and it's talent and it's smart and it's sharp. It's inside, it's outside. Yes. So
absolutely. And I think this is great. So we want people to get your book, because this book is important. I think it'll help people. I think it's super interesting.
It's fun.
It's just a lot of fun. I literally read this in one sitting. I read the whole thing in one sitting. I just didn't want to stop.
You could have been one of my 7 proofreaders.
I could have.
Can I just say too, just on a side, that what I did like in it as well is all like the retro photos and the photos of you with all the different people. Like I thought that was a really nice touch, and it added a lot to it, a lot of personality to it as well. So that was really cool.
There's 122 personal photos. Well, I'm a photographer, so those were all my pictures. I want to share one, there's exclusive content. I'm taking it down quickly so no one can scan it. So this is your exclusive content. Because I'm a Chinese astrologer, and because my goal for people getting the book is I want you to improve your life and work on yourself. So if you scan it, you scan on your phone, it brings up, and you put in your birthday, it will give you your Chinese astrology, a mini version of what's called your Batzi Chinese astrology chart. It will tell you your main characteristics, the hat you wear in business, how you approach things. It's really helpful. And you can put in your family and people you're working with. So if you're working with someone, or you want to see your spouse, or your kids, you put in their information. So it's a freebie at the back of the book. You just have to keep going back to your email to get the next step of it. But I worked on it for a year. So it's on Amazon.
Right.
And you get a Kindle version on Amazon. It's also on all those other like Goodreads, Barnes and Noble.
Yep.
I am going to put it on, I'm going to put them on my website. They're not up yet. So just give me a little website moment to do it. And I think I'm going to also offer, if someone wants that and they want the deck of cards.
Yes.
I think I'm going to do that, because I have to tell you, when I do the events, I let everyone pick a card, and that's their bookmark, and that became more popular. It's like, I just want the card, I'll get
I think that's good.
People love a good bookmark.
Yeah. And this is guidance. So,
and this is the modern day equivalent of your Assault of the Killer Bimbos merch trailer at the end of the
merch.
It's the same thing. You're getting people to continue being a part of the book. I love it.
I have a quick question about that movie, just to go back just for a second. If you were to have done the sequel, what were your ideas for that?
Well, it was called Bimbo Barbecue.
Yes. What does that mean?
I don't know. We're having a barbecue.
You had a cool title, at least.
Charlie had the title. We did the poster. I don't know. I mean, I guess we had a barbecue. You know what? We didn't get that far.
I love it.
It's all right.
I love that. I love that.
Something to shoot for.
I love that it had a cliffhanger, like a two coming soon. I love that. I just think that the whole thing is just so much fun.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. No, it's really fun chatting with you guys, and thank you for your enthusiasm. And the thing is, you guys get it. You get that. Yeah, 80's was, you know what? There was money flowing. There were the film, I think, was made for $250,000. It wasn't made for that much money. And Modern Girls was $5 million, and that was low budget.
Wow.
So yeah.
Okay, so let me just post this one more time. Try to get this, because again, it's available on Amazon. You can pick it up, and it's worth the purchase.
It's also on Tubi as well. You can watch it on
But
there.
you know what? Modern Girls is also a fun film. I didn't direct it, but I'm an extra in almost every scene. So see if you can find me. It's like looking for whatever in it.
Yep.
And it really was about my world at that time, going to clubs and so yeah, and there's a few little stories in the book about the Modern Girls and working with Virginia Madsen and Daphne Zuniga, Cindy Gibb. So that is another film, and it is campy and kitschy as well, just not as campy and kitschy as the Bimbo film. So
So
I
good.
felt like I had one other thing as an mention, but it kind of came in and out of my brain, and so that's okay.
Welcome to our world.
Yes.
But anyway, listen, thank you guys so much for
Thank you.
inviting me and including me. And yeah. And I was going to say, so, I'm on Instagram, AnitaRosenberg.com. I'd love you to follow me. I'm on Facebook as well. I have TikTok. I don't have, I do videos on TikTok, but I don't know if my audience is finding me there, but it's kind of fun anyway. But yeah, please follow me, because I'm always posting and doing things. And then when you sign up for the QR code, you are part of my newsletter. So when I can figure out what I want to focus on and write about, I will talk about that as well. And join the community. How's that? There we go. There's my
Sounds great.
I love it. We're in. We're supporters.
Yep. Thank you so much.
Anita.
Thanks,
This was
guys.
so much fun. All right.
That was super cool.
Amazing. I love hearing insider information like this. And I mean, and she's about as insider as you get.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was such a fun interview. Like I said at the beginning, it was 5 months in the making. We started talking about doing this episode back in November. It is now April. So it's taken a long time to put this all together and bring us all together and get the book and read the book and watch the movies and all of this stuff. So much fun, so worth it. We totally recommend the book. We totally recommend the movie. If you can get it. Loop, where do they get it?
They can get it in Canada at indigo.ca. So it looks like you can get it from there. Amazon.ca, not so sure. It's up there, but we're not 100% on that. But it's like anything in the industry, right? You never know who has it and who doesn't. So I think Indigo is pretty safe. I think it's a safe bet.
And if you're in the States, try Barnes and Noble. But before you do any of those things, visit AnitaRosenberg.com. We'll put that up on the screen so you can learn a little bit more about what she's doing now, what she's done in the past. It's a fascinating life. It really is. And we're so pleased that she could join us and tell us all about it.
Yeah, it's so cool. And it was just great to pick her brain a little bit. And there's so many things I wanted to ask her about, because she went to school with like Spike Lee and things. That she mentioned it briefly, but I wanted to go more into that. Like, it's just, there's so many just different people she's like come across over the years. And I thought it was all like super interesting and super cool. So it's a good, I'm glad she's your cousin,
Yes.
it's
Me too.
I didn't even get into my crush on Daphne Zuniga. I could have gone into that. I decided to keep that. Like, I'm a big Melrose Place fan, and she played Jo on there, and I was like, I'll keep that in the bag, but I'll maybe next time when we talk to her, I'll mention it to her.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We'll have a few more episodes before our season's done, but we'll see you next time on Loop and Larry, Guardians of Geek.
Bye-bye.
Produced by Matthew C. Loop and Lawrence Simner. A Loop and Larry production.
Bueller.
He likes it. Hey, Mikey.
Bueller.
Bad news. Fog is getting thicker.
And Leon's getting larger.
Inconceivable.
Brian's right. It's an elf.
Wax on.
Does Barry Manilow know that you raid his wardrobe?
Oh, Captain, my captain.
Life moves pretty fast. You don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.
Wax off.